Welcome to the Intuitive Websites Podcast, bringing you the country's top podcast on internet marketing. I'm your host, Glenn Thayer, and with me is the CEO of Intuitive Websites, Thomas Young, and search engine optimization guru, Dennis McCarthy. How's it going, guys?
It's going great.
Good, man.
Wonderful. As you remember, folks, all of our listeners, we were going over the 4-step process of intuitive websites to actually design an intuitive website. Mm-hmm. And in the previous podcast, we discussed strategy and design and development. Now, this podcast, we're going to go over building traffic and performance and conversions. So let's start with traffic. How exactly do we build traffic to this wonderful site that we've user tested and made perfect?
That's right. You know, every person that comes to a website is so valuable. So you want to make sure you've got the right strategy, you've got the right design, the right development, and then you begin the process of bringing traffic. And one of the most important things you want to do is use all your offline methods for bringing traffic in. Basically, asking people to go to your website on your ads, from your sales team, from your business cards, anything you do offline.
Don't forget those email signatures. Very important.
Email signatures. You know, you want to draw attention to the website. And the great thing about that is that they're usually qualified people because they're having some contact with your company. And the best thing is it's free traffic. This is free traffic that you're going to bring in. And then, of course, after that, which is probably number one, and is going to be search engines. And there's two critical components of search engines, and that one is optimization, and the second is pay-per-click. And we'll talk about that here in a second.
Now, pay-per-click is that starting to lose favor with people?
Mm-mm.
No, it's getting more popular. In fact, pay-per-click are the little ads that show up on a search. When, say on Google, when you do a search on Google, you'll see these ads popping up. That's pay-per-click. Those folks have paid to be listed there. Google is a multi-billion-dollar company. Its valuation is ridiculous because of that pay-per-click program. And it's only growing more and more. And the reason it's growing is because, number one, only a few companies even use it. And number two, most people don't know how to use it. And when they do use it, they throw a ton of money at it and it fails. And they say, that was just a waste of money. What are we doing? So there's lots of issues around why it's not used. And most of it has to do with education and how to measure ROI and that sort of thing. But what's happening right now in the marketplace is that it is growing very quickly.
I think gone are the days when people thought they could build a website and people would come. You know, the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come.
That's right.
On the web, it's if you build it, they won't come. And savvy marketers realize that when you build a website, you have to pay to have people show up. And you also have to search engine optimize. It's a combination of things. But to not pay at all, you're just not going to get the kind of traffic you need.
Well, what are some quick ways that people can optimize their web page for the search engines?
Well, if you went through the first podcast where we talked about number one, which was developing a strategy, and that's totally tied in with having a strong keyword focus on what your target market is looking for and what they would be searching upon.
So you would say put those in keywords in the meta tags?
Not really. Meta tags are not really very important at all anymore, but make sure that those words appear in all of your copy. Make sure that when you're writing a press release, those words are there. Make sure that when you're having a conversation with somebody, those words are there. Those words are the backbone of your whole website. So the search engine optimization process is just basically going through and making sure that your keyword focus is there. And it's amazing how many websites have a homepage that say, "Welcome to my obscure company name," and nothing about what they do or what they sell or anything their target market would be interested in if they didn't know the brand name.
That's very true. In fact, to give you an example of what Dennis is talking about, we work with a home builder here in Colorado Springs, and you know, you would think that real estate Colorado Springs or real estate Pikes Peak, which have huge search volumes, would be good for them, right? Well, it turns out that the best terms for them are terms like new home builder Colorado Springs or new homes Colorado Springs, very specific keywords that tie into their strategy. Because if you're a home builder, you're not really selling real estate as much as you're selling new homes.
And in a place like Colorado Springs, 50% of their traffic is coming from out of the state. People who want to move to the mountains.
Yeah. Well, how would somebody know what terms to use?
Well, that really involves understanding your target market and understanding what you do. And, you know, just basically, I could sit and have a conversation with a business owner and ask them what they do and ask them to describe their ideal customer, and you get an immediate sense of what the keywords are. And then you go look at the website, and none of them are there. And that's very typical.
That's true. And there are tools out there that can help you measure exact counts. WordTracker.com is a great tool for that. Would you say, Dennis, that's still the top in the market is WordTracker.com?
Yeah, and there are some others that are kind of up and coming, but WordTracker is the one that every search marketer kind of has to have. The another really important source for that is finding their competitors. Once you understand what your keyword focus is, finding out who does really well in search engine rankings on those keywords. And you go to their website and you'll see more keywords. You'll see really great strategies for bringing search traffic to a site.
Well, what's interesting that we found is the title tag. And Dennis, why don't you explain what the title tag is, because it's just so critical.
Well, it's an invisible tag, supposedly, but what it shows up as the title of the window. You know, when you drag your windows about, the thing that's at the very top of the window is the title tag. And more importantly, it shows up as the large headline blue text in the search engine results page. So when you search on Google and you see those titles, those things you click on, those are all title tags. And those are directly what gets indexed by Google.
And we do this all the time. We're sitting with a client, and you can just predict what's going to be number one. The sites that are the top sites are the ones that have that search phrase in the title. Now, if you're going after a very competitive phrase, it's not going to work because there's lots of folks going after that title tag. But for most companies, they have this whole grouping of niche phrases, especially if they're tied into like their location. Those need to be in the title tag. It's probably one of the most important areas for optimization.
So we're not saying don't put your brand in the title tag. We're saying put your brand in the title tag and what you do.
And that's important, the brand. I'm glad you brought that up, because the thing about brand is basically, what is your company name? How well are you known online? And make sure that you market to that company name. Okay, don't take it for granted that just because your brand is there and you might already have good positioning, people are going to find you. We think it's a great idea to target paid ads at your brand because they'll show up more places on Google, you get more exposure. And then also Google has partnerships with sites all over the web that will place your ads in different places like AOL.com and other websites.
Here's another really key point on search. Know your niche. And don't try to go after this broad generic thing that everybody else is going after. There are professional search engine optimizers who will have your lunch. The example we have recently with the client who does executive recruiting. But they have a little spin on what they do. They do executive recruiting consulting. They write books, they do seminars, they help people to hire better. To go after the term executive recruiting is virtually impossible for them. To go after the term executive recruiting consulting, which really is what we would call their sweet spot, makes all kinds of sense. Not as many competitors, and they would bring... The key is to bring the right traffic to the site, not just tons of traffic.
Absolutely. And search engines are still the top of the list for driving traffic, and they have been for years and years. And another important way to drive traffic is through your email marketing. Through link relationship programs. We don't advocate that you go out and get links just to have links. There needs to be a reason to link to someone's website and for someone to link to your site.
Now, quick thing on the links.
Yes.
Do search engines, if you've got a quality link coming from, let's say if you wrote an article and it was published at time.com,
yes,
and you have it there and they link back to your website as the author, and you have a link from your website going to it, here's my article at Time Magazine, is that going to increase your search engine rankings?
Well, yes, it will. Yes, it will. But I think that the nature of how that's working is changing. Most of the clients we work with are not going to be in Time Magazine. I mean, they're not going to have that kind of link popularity. So really the fundamentals for them is going to be the optimization of the pages and doing the right keyword research so that your pages will be indexed by Google.
Well, the linking is really a critical point. Now, Google has two ways of ranking your site. It evaluates your site to try to find out what it's about, and then it goes to all the sites that link into your site to try to find what they're about. And if there's a match, that's a great thing. If there's a match with a really big, popular site, that's even better. So with my executive recruiting example, if they manage to get somebody to link to them from some executive recruiting association, Google would go to their site, see that it's about executive recruiting. They'd go to this association site, see that it's totally about executive recruiting, and the link inbound would be very, very valuable in that case, because what you're trying to say to Google is, hey, this is what our site's about. It really, really is.
Go
Actually, on that same note, how do the new social networking communities like MySpace, Facebook, LinkedIn, how do those incorporate?
Well, how do they incorporate into
Well,
link,
as far
link
as
exchanges?
or not necessarily link exchanges, but as far as search engines are concerned.
Oh, if they link to you,
Correct. Like, let's say, I mean,
if
obviously,
you
as
have
a
links
user,
on MySpace,
you have a
and they
link
can
on
link back
MySpace. You've got a MySpace page that's set up, and it drives traffic to your business. Let's say it's a
Yeah.
talent agent or something
Oh,
to that
absolutely. I
effect.
see it follow you.
And
Yeah.
and then that way it links back and
So,
forth.
so the question is, how do you, if you use large social networking type websites to link back to you, does that help you with Google?
Or LinkedIn would be a prime example
LinkedIn.
where a lot of folks.
I don't know how helpful that is because Google is very smart at making connections.
It's about
between,
the relevance of the links. If the
Yeah,
links are
they-
relevant, if you have a band and you have a band web page and you also have a MySpace page that really talks about your band, it's all about the relevance of the link.
I think that's more important for Google. But one of the ways to make links work for you is to have what we call a content distribution program. And basically what that is that's a way of getting your information spread out on the web on various websites. So for example, you might go to a time.com and you might be listed there because you had a great press release. You distributed some content that Time said, hey, we want to run with this. That's the kind of thing you want to focus on is content distribution. And podcasts, webinars, blogs, articles, e-newsletters, all of those things should be distributed on websites. When that happens, then you've got your links coming in, and the relevancy is very strong because they're not going to run with your content unless it's important to them.
I'd like to add two things to that. Links programs, no one does them. And no one does them, number one, because they sort of don't know how to, and number two, because there's no one in the company who can do it. And I would recommend to anybody who's listening to this, assign someone to be in charge of your links program on a daily basis. And you'd be amazed how quickly, when you're looking back at that in the rearview mirror, how quickly you've got a whole bunch of relevant links. Now, the other thing with content distribution, you have to have a blog. The blog is there for a couple of reasons. It keeps you in relationship with your customers. It avoids that problem with most websites where you dump a bunch of content on the web page. For every new program, somebody wants to stick it in a really prevalent place. It belongs on the blog. And it's amazing how many people click on those blog links on the website. The popularity of those links are huge in every single site that we serve.
Yeah, and you know, there's something about blogs where it's kind of like non-salesy marketing type content. So people are really likely to pick it up.
Oh, and one other thing, they're super search engine friendly.
Yeah, it's all
especially if you keep in
content.
mind your
they're
keyword
personal,
focus.
and they're also personal.
They're
So a lot of
personal.
time it's it's written by a person who's being more personable. It's like, hey, this is what happened in my travels.
Yeah,
I see
if
a lot
it
of
was a personal
professional
blog.
a lot of professional speakers do that, and their blogs are hits because people go, well, I want to know what's going on right now with this guy.
That's right, and you can translate that to a business because a business has stories to tell, just like people do. And the stories that the business can tell should be on a blog.
And ultimately, the website is about creating a relationship with your customers. And the blog, do keep in mind, as you're writing it, that everybody should understand that keyword focus. And those keywords have to be in those articles. They just have to be in the titles of the articles and in the bodies of the articles.
Well, let's talk about performance and conversions here. As far as conversions, Tom, you're big on conversions.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think everybody should be big on conversions because that's where you're going to make your money. Whether it's an e-commerce site or whether somebody's going to pick up the phone and call you and say, "I'm interested in your services."
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, it doesn't mean a thing if you've got 1,000 visitors a day on your website and they don't do anything. they don't somehow turn into customers. And that's what this step 4 is about, performance and conversion. And there's lots of key areas to cover here. And I can see we're not going to have the time to do that. So we'll probably end up doing another podcast just on these last 2 areas. But the bottom line with performance and conversions is that you're doing something on a regular basis at a minimum monthly, where you sit down and you look at what's happening on the website, you make some educated decisions, and you put an action plan, and you say, we're going to make some changes because of what we're seeing on our website. That's what performance and conversion is all about. All the data is there. We talked about Google Analytics. All the data is there.
The whole process culminates in performance and conversions. You have a sound strategy, you design it so the target market can use it, you bring traffic to it, and then you make sure it converts. In multiple ways, you make sure it's about relationship building.
Yeah, we might want to define what a conversion is. A conversion is, in our mind, that the website visitor went one step further than just reviewed your site. They contacted you, they became a sales lead, they actually bought on the web, they came by to see your products in your store, whatever happens, it went from a step beyond just being a website visitor to interacting with your business. And then from there, in a lot of cases, it's up to your traditional sales approach or whatever you're doing to make them customers. But all websites should have that, and you should be measuring it.
Well, what we're going to do, folks, is we're going to talk about conversions in the next podcast. One of the action items that I want to make sure that each and every one of you do, if you haven't already, is go to intuitiveblog.com. That's right, intuitiveblog.com, and download the 4-step process checklist. Your job is to download that in PDF format, print it out, and have it with you, and you'll actually really go through all of the 4 steps that we've been discussing here in the last 2 podcasts.
Absolutely, and I'll add a couple more action steps to that. And I think that it's going to be critical to go and learn about how search engines work. And one of the best resources for that is google.com. They explain everything. And then secondly, to measure this performance stuff we're talking about, go and learn about Google Analytics. It's probably the best thing on the web that's free right now. There's a lot of free things. It's probably the best thing that's free. And learn how to get Google Analytics on your website and start watching the stats today.
And I've put them on my website, and it's phenomenal, the feedback that you get.
Oh, it is. It's great.
Well, folks, this has been an Intuitive Websites podcast. And to hear more podcasts and more information, visit us online at intuitivewebsites.com.